Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're gonna give it 2 minutes to allow people time to join. And you may be hearing my dogs in the background. I love it when they start barking at the exact moment I'm on a meeting or something. So welcome, everyone. We're super excited to have Autodesk here today. We're gonna get a behind the scenes look. So we're gonna kick it off at 2 minutes after the hour. So while we're waiting, if you could say hi in the chat and where are you joining us from? And in the chat, make sure you click to everyone. For me, it just defaults to two hosts and panelists.
Savannah.
Ooh, we've got West Coast, a lot of California, Savannah. I love Savannah, great town. Sonoma, oh, beautiful. I want to be there right now. Boston, yes. Atlanta, lots of East Coast, West Coast folks. North Carolina, nice. Ooh, Colorado. San Antonio. Hi, everyone. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar inside the Autodesk CAD program, taking your executive advisory board to the next level. So we are recording the webinar and we'll send it to you afterwards. You can type any questions in the Q&A box and in the chat, and we'll answer them as we go, or at the end we might have some time as well. So we're about to do a poll, and then I'm gonna hand it over to Elena and Michaela of Autodesk. I'm super excited. They're gonna introduce themselves in a minute here, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. Quickly about Ignite, we're solely dedicated to designing, managing, and facilitating customer and partner advisory boards. We've completed over 300 advisory board engagements across the globe. And many B2B leading companies use our industry best practices that we've developed over the years. Okay, poll time. This will be the first of several polls. So let me launch the poll. What is the current status of your CAB or advisory board program? Don't have one yet, trying to launch. Existing program on hold, program in progress, or you're expanding your program. We'll give it another 10 seconds or so. Let us know. Okay, I'll do 5 more seconds. Get in your answers. Okay, Elena and Michaela, are you seeing the results? So as has been the trend in our prior webinars, a majority have a program in progress or are expanding, and then there is a smaller number of folks who are trying to launch, don't have a program, or their program is on hold. Thank you, everyone. And we look forward to your participation on our other polls that we're going to have here in a bit. Oh, sorry. This is time for me to hand it off to Elena.
All right, let me share my screen here. Whoop. Are we seeing the right screen or not yet?
Just about. You need to go into presenter mode.
How's now?
We're great. Thanks,
Yep.
Elena.
All right, let's kick it off.
Perfect. I guess since I'm on the right, I'll go first. Hi, everyone. It's really nice to be with you all today. I'm Michaela Alexander. I've been running different forms of customer engagement and advocacy programs for the last kind of decade through lots of different roles and responsibilities. And a fun little antidote, our last customer advisory board that we just hosted in Munich, Germany, was my first time emceeing our advisory board. And it was a very full circle moment for me because my first job as a marketing coordinator, I helped assist on a customer advisory board. And I remember going, this is magic and I want to do this someday. So to make it from that to then getting to work with the lovely Elena and team to scale our program globally and then get to stand on the stage was a very full circle moment for me. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Michaela. Hi, everyone. Elena Lelchuk here. I'm a Senior Customer Experience Manager at Autodesk. I've been running executive engagements and content strategy for our customer advisory boards for over 6 years. And I'm excited to share some of our insights here today.
Perfect. So to kick it off, we just thought we would kind of ground you guys in where our Construction Executive Council lives. And just to clarify as well, we are one of many different programs at Autodesk. I will pat our shoulder and say that our Chief Customer Officer said that we created and set the gold standard for what advisory boards at Autodesk should look like. So that was a really great compliment we got from her. And our Construction Executive Council has grown over the past 6 years, which Elena will get into on the next slide. But we wanted to show you some of the other areas that are here and where it sits in all of our different customer feedback opportunities and engagement. So this is kind of our white glove top council members at the CIO, CTO status. We do then also have product advisory groups. There's a customer overlap in some of those from the same accounts. And then we also have a broader community. And one thing that Elena will get into kind of in how we think about content really levels up to this as well, which is when we're thinking about our executive advisory board, we're really pushing the needle to look out to that 3 to 5, I would dare to say even 10-year scope of where our strategy is going and really investing in these customers to help lead us there. Where our product advisory groups are really in that 1 to 3 year, how are we changing and shifting product strategy? And our community is really our pulse on what's happening now and the feedback we're getting there. So that's kind of our feedback cycle with these different groups and audiences. All right, I'm going to hand it to Elena to go into Construction Executive Council a little bit.
All right, thanks, Michaela. So over the past 6 years, this program, I jumped ahead. So we want to ground today's conversation in a real world example. As Michaela mentioned, there's different types of customer advisory boards. Today, we're going to talk about our executive customer advisory board, or as we refer to it, Construction Executive Council. So over the past 6 years, this program has grown from a North America chapter into EMEA and APAC into what it is today, which is a global summit for our customers. Our engagement model is pretty simple. We ask for a 2-year engagement to keep up with the continuity, and we ask our customers to attend 2 in-person events. We do not have any virtual interactions that we ask them to participate in. So one of the biggest takeaways from building this program has been the power of staying cross-functional. We're really focused on involving and driving value for everyone from strategy, marketing, customer advocacy initiatives, our R&D team. And I think that has been really impactful as in aligning our leadership and really establishing that feedback loop for our customers and Autodesk.
So I wanted to jump in and just spend a little bit of time on executive sponsors as well as where does your advisory board sit? And this is also going to play into how we think about impact and how we articulate our results at the end. So out of curiosity, which business unit or function does your CAB program sit under? So we're going to launch a quick poll to get a sense of this.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me, yeah, where does your CAB sit? Oh, interesting. I'm not sure why it's not letting me, hold on, let me close out. It wasn't letting me launch. I just closed out the box. Let me try again. Poll result. Interesting. Why is it not? Oh, there it is.
Oh, there's.
Just figured it out. Now I can launch. Where does your which business unit or function does your CAB program sit under? Marketing or customer marketing, customer experience or success, product, strategy, executive office, shared ownership, other, type in chat. We have a response from Shelley, industry, sales, operations. I'm going to give it another 10 seconds or so. And thank you everyone for participating and typing in the chat. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Are you seeing the results, Elena and Michaela?
Yeah, looks like marketing is taking the lead.
Majority in marketing or customer marketing, and then split between all the others.
Great. And then out of curiosity, I'd also love to know, is your executive sponsor within the same department that's funding your advisory board? And you can just feel free to share that in the chat.
Yes, please type in the chat.
No. Yeah.
Majority knows, some like 2 yeses.
Yeah.
Majority no, yeah.
This is really interesting, and also doesn't surprise me because it's also very similar to ours, where our team lives in marketing. Our executive sponsor is the EVP of product and strategy. And the reason I wanted to ask that is because I think this is something that we all come up against often when we are looking for how do we align with our executive sponsors? How do we get true buy-in? What does it look like if our funding is coming from one department? And then the next question that I wanted to ask was, which is another poll, which is which department is funding your advisory board? And that might be the same as the one that you're sitting in. And we can kind of go to that one next. And the reason I wanted to ask that is because over time for us, our team has moved quite a few different departments, and we found that with moving different departments that we've had to reestablish what is the budget for this program, who's paying for it. And as I said, I'll get into later in terms of our results and impact, but one of the ways that I've gotten really creative to keep this program funded is by making sure that my results and impact align really closely to each of the different departments that we're giving back to. And thus, when our marketing team says, hey, you just got transferred to our team and our budget for next year is already tapped out and you didn't transfer with the same amount of budget, I was able to go back to sales and say, hey, this is the amount of revenue in the room that we're impacting. Hey, product, that you get very specific feedback and insights that helps our strategy for the future. So it really helped in terms of grounding the conversation and the impact it was having for them, and thus helping to really ensure that our program stayed funded. So we can definitely take
that again. The poll question was, who is your CAB's primary exec sponsor?
The next one was where does the funding come from? But if I mess that up in our slide deck, that's okay. We can continue on.
Let's continue, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So that's a little bit about our executive sponsorship sitting under product, but our team sitting under marketing, and our funding coming from a collaboration of different people. So I'm definitely happy to take more questions about that at the end as well. So I'm going to hand it back over.
Pause you for a second. Someone was asking about how many times did you meet per year, and only in person, nothing virtual? Or do you meet virtually?
Yeah, great questions. So we do meet twice a year in person. I also want to clarify, in that photo that we showed, you might be going, wow, that's a lot of people in that photo. If you want to go back to it, Elena, on our executive sponsor slide. So typical CABs, and this might be the case in your guys' teams, are between 12 to 18 customers. Our cab actually has about 40 global customers, and we got to that global size when we started opening up regional cabs, and then we wanted to bring those cabs together into a global conversation in order for them to kind of gain empathy on why were we going in certain directions with our strategy and how it was a global strategy, not just a regional strategy. And that was, so that's why you see a much larger cab size. I would say it's almost become an executive summit type format at this point. We could get into all the pros and cons of that, but wanted to clarify that. And we've also been circulating it between North America and EMEA. We host one a year in North America, and all the customers come to the US, and then the other one is in different parts of EMEA. So we've hosted in Dublin and Munich, Copenhagen, so a few different areas. Run by, let's see, what are some of the other questions? 15 vendors. All right, yeah, and then slides on impact. Yeah, so we'll get into that a little bit later. So I'm going to hand it over to Elena to go into a little bit of our content strategy.
All right.
A quick question about what you just said. Are they the same audience for North America and EMEA or region specific?
Yeah, the cab team runs the programs under the umbrella. So it is different. We actually have a small APAC contingent, and that's I would say our most emerging business and area that is least developed. So we have a smaller number of members from that region. And then we have about 16 to 18 in EMEA and about 16 to 18 in North America. And so that's kind of our split. And going into next year, in transparency, we are looking at things like, do we want to bring it back to a regional conversation? Do we want to have a smaller global council? What are the pros and cons? So that's kind of what we're looking at. But it has been really helpful if you're in a global company and you're building a product or platform for a global audience, having the audience in a cross-functional meeting where they're understanding why something is being done or why something is delayed on something that would really impact them regionally, it helps them to understand how the roadmap is serving all of those customers.
And before you continue on about the content, Sandra is asking, have you experienced any budgetary constraints from cab members around flight costs to attend North America and EMEA meetings?
Yeah, great question. So this is really where, and getting into content, I think this really lays the groundwork for your audience has to be such a great audience mix and fit, and your content has to be really on point, and your executives have to be there in order for that person to get on the plane and dedicate their time and energy to get there. We do pay for, once customers are on site, we pay for food, beverage, and hotel. It is their responsibility to get there. And we've actually had an incredible turnout from our audiences so far in terms of flying between North America and the US. We are also on a 6 to 8 month advance cadence. So they get to save the date almost 8 months in advance, and they know location 6 months. So much of it, especially as we all know with an executive audience, is getting on their calendar and making sure it's the one thing they feel like they can't miss.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is about the value, which is a perfect segue to this slide.
Perfect. Excellent questions. And yes, as Michaela mentioned, this program has evolved so many times, and it's due to listening to the customers and what they want and what's happening in the industry and their priorities. So as GCs in the construction business started to globalize and do more international work, it just made sense for these peers to exchange ideas and learn from each other from different parts of the world. And content, we kind of approach the same way. So this is just a quick breakdown of how we approach the executive audience. So with a C-level audience, we focus our agenda on long-term strategic direction, looking 3 to 5 years out. We spend even less time on near and even less time on now. So this structured approach lets us shape the content intentionally, and it's really tailored to the executive priorities and future focused conversations. But we do try to keep that balance to make sure we're updating them on what's going on in the now. Any questions that I should pause for, Tatiana?
Yeah, there was a question before, not specifically about this, but how big is your cab team?
You're looking at it. Plastic.
Okay.
Yes, we do have, so on my team, Elena is really helping to focus on all of our content strategy, everything from our executive speakers to our executive summary at the end and everything in between. And then we do have an operations lead who is doing all of the customer communications. And then we work with an event agency for logistics. So I would say that we are, really blessed in that way. I know that's not the case for many councils, but I would say that there are ways to build your narrative to get to that point and to show the importance of the impact of this program so that you can say, if you want us to scale us, this is what successful looks like. And if you want this to be an executive level white touch, this is the funds that we'll need to make that happen.
Thank you. Someone asked about roles. You just covered that. Shelley's asking, this looks to be 100% of the CAB meeting regarding the content approach. How do you split you talking versus customer talking? We have a point of view at Ignite, let the customers
Great
talk 80%
question.
of the time, but go
And
ahead. Yeah.
perfect setup, listening. So really focusing on listening and less talking at them and really engaging in interactive discussions. So pardon my amateur graphic here, but what I was trying to say is when building an agenda, I always prioritize making space for customer feedback. So always add to every session time for questions so that we really don't have to keep everything to the end for a Q&A. But it sounds simple, but as internal speakers and stakeholders grow, it's kind of hard to balance that and it could get tricky. So a helpful rule of thumb, as I think Tatiana was referencing, is 80% listening, 20% presenting. So major shift for listening and interacting. Advisory boards really thrive on dialogue and not so much monologue. Which means fewer slides, more space for two-way conversations. It's about learning and not just kind of delivering the message. So we work really hard to kind of update our agenda to workshops, interactive sessions, breakouts, allow the different people in the room as many different formats and forums to interact with each other and connect and network with each other as much as possible.
Yeah, I would say some really key things we did in this last one as well, just thinking about AI and how much it's coming into play and helping. We know it's best practice to do customer polls and get a pulse on what customers want to talk about and what's top of mind. But we actually utilized AI this time to kind of synthesize that information and then feed it back to our executives as they were building content with Elena to say, this is what they're saying is top of mind. And when we do an opening panel with you guys for customers, we don't wait for the questions to come at the end. Elena was started a brilliant idea of starting with an executive customer panel. So right off the bat, if there are things that are top of mind or they're passionate about saying, they've got leadership on stage to go into those questions right away. We also introduced something called brain dates, which is very similar if some of you have heard about an unconference, where we really let customers lead the subjects for part of the programming and broke them into groups according to the topics that they were most interested in talking about. The last thing I'll say on content that I think is brilliant that Elena's done is we've really gone into what is the red thread of every program. If you're at a larger company and you have other departments that are doing amazing things, such as a research department or maybe a government affairs department, bringing them into the conversation and letting them know this is how these other departments are serving you really sets you apart because it's showing your customers you're not just buying our software, you are an instrumental partner in how we build the future together. And here are all the other ways our company is supporting you on that journey.
So I'm going to pause for a couple of questions. Do you have a professional scribe at your cabs? We usually enlist some of our stakeholders. We've previously had our voice of the customer lead sit in the room and leverage some of that information for the voice of the customer report and help us take notes. For me, the most reliable thing is recording audio for everything, single session, that I can then transcribe and have access to that. And because you can't possibly capture every quote and every point made during our cabs are 2-day meetings, so there's just a lot of information and content to capture. We usually do 1 to 2 slides to lay out the topic and then ask questions to get the dialogue going. We do that as well, moment to pause and kind of ensure it's resonating with the audience. We also do breakouts, introduce a topic, ask groups to break out into smaller groups so that we can get some of the quieter voices in the room heard. I think that's important also when you have an international audience and not everyone's a fluent English speaker or English is their second language. So we have to be very kind of in tune with their needs. Someone just raised their hand, Tatiana. How does this
We
work?
have a few other questions in here. So Shelley, in terms of how do you get the breakouts at the tables, one thing that we've done is we've kind of created a buddy system. So every time that we do a breakout, we have one of our executives or someone else that's an Autodesker in the room joining those conversations. And then we've also kind of built in shareback. So after breakouts, maybe those customers going on stage in a panel-like format with one of our executives to talk about what were the top things that came out in their group. This is a really great way of making sure you're capturing some of the top ideas coming out of each of those individual sections.
Yep, and also it's important to kind of share with the entirety of the room what was talked about in each of the small groups.
And then Ruth, to your question in terms of giving guidance, I would honestly say that this is what makes Elena's role so clutch, is that our executives really do look at us to help guide them in the content development and help them to say, you know what, you wanted to ask 6 questions in that workshop and you need to take it down to 3, and you have this much time and you need to create this clarity. So they really do look to us to guide the way that they are interacting and presenting to these customers, because they know that is our expertise.
And then last question said, did recording audio require CAB member approval? No, because we don't share that. That's just for our internal use. Everyone's under NDA.
And I will say, we do embed approval in a research agreement in the registration page. So there's two pieces of legal approval that we get upon registering for the event. One is the research agreement saying that we're utilizing this for internal research. And the second is the marketing release form, where we can use their headshot and logo on the landing page with the other customers. So that way, we don't run into any legal allocations with that. If we are using a quote or something externally after, we do get secondary approval.
Yep.
Oh, Elena, you mentioned the hand. That was just thumbs up. So everyone keep the emojis coming.
Awesome. I love all these questions.
And there's one more question. Do you see from Shelley?
So you have a public facing page with your CAB members. It's password protected. Shelley. All right. And just a little bit more about agenda development and stakeholders. So I always begin with the customer in mind first. What topics came up? Where did we leave off at the last CAB meeting? What was in the survey? What I'm hearing from customers, and then I build out from there, right? Like, here are the key topics. And then I work with our internal leadership or subject matter experts to really refine that content connected to what's happening in the industry and the market, make sure it's relevant and timely to what these customers are experiencing in the field. And yeah, I think someone mentioned the question, do you coach? We work very closely with session leaders and content stakeholders to really coach them to add as much space as possible. If I'm giving them an hour for a session, that's not an hour for them to just talk and present. It's 30 minutes for them to talk and present, and then the rest is to engage the audience in questions and dialogue.
We've also really emphasized the importance of having people come in for a dry run rehearsal, which I know is probably more than a lot of people do in meetings, but it's made a world of difference to get our executives in and really make sure that they're well briefed, especially with some of the hot buttons and questions that are going to come at them. And we've worked very closely with our executive comms teams who are, hand in hand with some of those top executives.
There's a Q&A question. Do your CAB members know everyone who is on the CAB? Well, I'm sure they met them at the in-person meeting, but do you also, I guess the question is, do you have like the roster on the password protected page? Like what do you have on that page? I guess would be my question.
Yeah.
And you provide, follow-up question is, do you provide a roster?
Yeah, so great questions. We utilize Splash as our landing page. One of the things that I like about that, or other pages that are in the hands of your team is that you can easily manipulate and change content easily. So if a member drops off, or if someone's coming in as a delegate, which we don't allow often, but every once in a while there's a special situation, we can then add their, name, LinkedIn and photo to the website really easily. The other thing that we've done to get, more sustainable and kind of savvy on any last minute content agenda changes is that we keep, as the agenda starts to formulate, we add that to the website as well. And then we put the QR code on the back of the customer's badges. So that way, at any point during the meeting, if they want to know a little bit more about someone they're talking to, they can go navigate to that person, go to their LinkedIn easily. They can also go and see the agenda that's coming up that next day. So it's all right there, easy access for both them and our internal staff as well. That page then becomes the post content drop page for the executive summary and for any of the slides that we're going to share. So it's a one-stop shop that they can always continue to go back to, photos, anything like that as well. Another important thing I'd say from a content perspective that we've had a big win on is utilizing Ink Factory to do live note taking in the room. It's a beautiful way of capturing some of the top notes, and customers can go and take photos of those in real time so that they can add it into their notes that they're taking as well.
Did I get the name of the tool right? Splash?
Flash.
Yep. It's great.
Yeah. I think it's actually splashthatmaybe.com. Don't quote me on that, but
There it is.
that takes you there, maybe. And then what was the note-taking tool again? I mean, we do have someone in there that is kind of helping to live take notes. And then Elena is just having the recording or of the notes from the audio recording, and then using probably our internal, I don't want to quote you on that, Elena, but our internal Autodesk GPT to help synthesize maybe.
Yes. So I use our transcripts and then I use ChatGPT or Autodesk GPT to summarize the transcript. There's just a lot of conversation in there, so it gives me kind of a place to start with, and then I summarize that with key takeaways. That's the most reliable way I found. It's definitely time consuming, and especially with an agenda that's 2 days long, it takes a lot to kind of consolidate all that, but at least I know everything is captured. Oh, Ink Factory. Ink Factory is an artist that comes in and uses large boards to do live note taking as we go through our sessions. And they just do a really good job of kind of visualizing the conversation that's in the room. And it's just another interactive element to add to this meeting where customers can walk around, see what was talked about the day before, earlier in the morning, kind of a good reference back point.
I'm going to go to the next slide. We can get into some of our defining success metrics.
I want to make sure all the questions are answered, and then let's go to the next. Here we are.
Awesome. So this was kind of a model. At one point in time, we had moved from marketing into customer success, which meant the language of our CAB and who we were supporting went more into the adoption journey than it did just, defining advocates of the marketing journey. And then we all know that it supports sales as well. And so I wanted to create a visual that really went back to our metrics and how we define metrics for each of these different departments. And so when we say win, so we're measurement of the account, we want to really look at where was the EBA when we started this journey, or were they an EBA customer? And then did this account, grow over the time? And what does that look like according to accounts who are not part of CAB, right? And did we see a massive amount of growth during their time with us on council? So we know that we are an influence touch point. We aren't the end all be all of these account cells, but we also know and have heard anecdotal feedback, as well as can see from the numbers that this is impacting our cells. And we have a really nice, I would say, deep wait list for customers who are from our internal sales team who are chomping to get their customers on council. I know we all know here that it's a balance between what sales wants, what we need in terms of thought leaders, and what different parts of the business need in order to have a balanced level of different voices in the room and to really create the culture of the council as well. So we're looking at all of those things, but we are working very closely with sales on this journey, letting them know when invites go out, having a very, very select few sales members as part of the council under very strict orders that they are not allowed to sell in the room, and that they're there to be humble listeners of the program. I know that can always be a controversy within this, but that's a choice that we've made, and it's actually gone really well for us. Adopt from the CS perspective, we are working with younger technology, and so ensuring that these customers are going on a deeper adoption journey with us and being able to measure that through monthly active users on our newer construction software versus being legacy users of just our older softwares. Are they really adopting at a faster rate than those who are not part of council? And then listening, and is really, our voice of the customer report is something that a lot of these insights go into to really get a basis of what's happening with these executive accounts, and getting their top of mind into a larger report that the rest of the CS and sales team is seeing, so that they understand what are some of the industry pain points, and they can use that as a way to leverage conversations with their top customers who might not be in council. The other thing I want to note about listening is that we work very closely with our strategy team on this program. And our strategy team is looking at that more 5 to 10 year out. Where are we going? What are we acquiring? What APIs are we connecting with? And so these insights help to deeply inform that team's direction. And then marketing, right? So one of the things that I keep preaching internally is this idea of proactive advocacy versus reactive. So we've all have been in a situation, if you're in customer marketing, where you're going, oh my gosh, I need a customer quote, or I need a reference call, or I need something. And then you go back to your team and you kind of scramble and look for it. So what we started doing, knowing that we had a cadence of every 6 months of having a council, and then knowing, for example, that our large user conference was at the end of the year, we went to the marketing team who was hosting the user conference, and we said, what are your thought leadership pillars and that you are focusing your content strategy around this year? Okay, great. Now we're going to add this. Not only are you interested in speaking or doing something with Autodesk in the future into our end of survey results for CAB, but we're going to get more specific. Can you speak to sustainability? Can you speak on AI in construction? Would you like an opportunity like that? So with getting proactive about getting an understanding of where these customers were at and what they were excited about, we were able to serve up to our customer marketing team at the time and to the rest of the content team specific customers with specific case studies and examples. And we ended up placing 4 of our council members on stage at the last Autodesk University. And then, yes, so I think I would really employ all of you to think about what are your pillars, and then how do you really map those back to your teams in a tangible way. So we have metrics aligned to each of these different listening posts in terms of how we look at measurement. And I think I get into that on the next slide. Any questions?
Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
I love this slide, by the way. Someone just said the voice of the customer report sounds fantastic. Can you share more about how you craft this and share?
Sure. So we, when we were sitting in customer success, we were on a team called Customer Experience. It was a really lovely opportunity and time to help to be a leader, helping to build out this framework. So my customer marketing leader, or voice of the customer, sorry, leader sat to the right of me. And then to the left of me was the head of customer education. And then we also had another leader who was an industry expert and had a team of industry experts. So it was a really unique team called Customer Experience sitting inside of the customer success team. And so what we did was we aligned our programs, our customer engagement strategy programs, as key listening posts. So what they would do is they would take the insights here, like such as these, quotes or major insights that came out of the customer advisory board, and they would pair that with data they were getting throughout our product and other areas. And so the 2 of those together made up some of the major points of the VOC report that then was expanded to the rest of the team. Elena, anything else you want to elaborate on there? Because you were really close to that work.
Yeah, I mean, it allowed us the opportunity, or allowed me the opportunity, to have a really strong stakeholder in the content development process. The voice of the customer lead helped me kind of curate some of our customer insights sessions that kind of correlate how our product is influenced by customer feedback. So that was a really great opportunity to connect the dots there.
Yeah, so really
Thank you.
show that full circle listening to these customers.
There's some questions from kind of what you said prior, and then you can move on, but
And can you topics? So it evolves at every meeting. So one thing that does stay consistent is we do a product update with our R&D leadership team. So that's kind of like maybe the format changes a bit, but the presenters and kind of the topic stays consistent. Everything else kind of evolves depending on what topic, red thread we're focusing on, what customers want to talk about. We've had everyone from our research team to our government affairs and public policy team speak to our customer based on what was happening with regulations around AI. So it really depends on what is top of mind for customers, what announcements Autodesk is trying to relay to make sure that we're sharing information updates with them in a timely manner. So there's no standard agenda, if you will. It's always evolving, but through the customer lens.
Yeah, and I would say one other thing, Larry, I'd add to that is we try, if depending on people's schedules, if it allows, to always open up with a broader industry context on day one and go into something inspirational or thought leadership or bring in another department to share their insights. And then moving into day two, a little bit more concrete into the industry, into the product roadmap and what's next, and kind of going into that. I think that one of the things I'm really proud about that we did with this is that we've always gone back to what is our CEO, Andrew Aganas, what is the story that he's telling at that larger company level? So for example, for Autodesk right now, the story of convergence is really important, right? How is there a convergence between the construction and manufacturing space, and how are we helping to lead change there? So in this program, going to Munich wasn't by just arbitrary, it was by design to be able to look at how the manufacturing industry is working. So we brought in Porsche Consulting Group to talk about what are they doing, how are they working with us, and then we brought two of our customers up on stage who had a manufacturing background and then a construction background to look at that holistically. So we had someone from our informed design team as the panel lead, and then with three panelists, two of which were customers, one was an industry expert. So that gives you an idea of how we're really trying to bring it into a more strategic and broader environment with this content.
Thank you. There's a question from Shelley. Does your two-person team also run the product advisory groups? And is that your jobs?
We sure do. And again, there are, it is three of us, so we do have an operations lead, but it is lean and mighty, and this is where the key partnerships with these other teams comes in a big way. Yeah. And
then the other question is, often are you touching base with your members, I guess, outside of the CAB meetings?
Yeah. I would say right now it's mainly in the CAB meetings, and then we really rely on the relationships of our executives and strategy team and our sales team to continue those pulse checks in the in-between. We are thinking about creative ways, if we can find bandwidth, to do maybe a mid touch point or something of that nature. I would say it's surprising how fast 6 months goes, especially when you're sending out the save the date or developing the content and kind of dropping the agenda or sending out a survey. You really do get some touch points along the way.
I would say we do engage with them through other kind of formats. Our strategy team engages with them as cohorts. We don't engage with the whole group as a whole, but I do speak to customers if coordinating a PR opportunity or a speaking opportunity for Autodesk that they might have signed up for. So we kind of keep in touch with members ad hoc as opportunities come up.
Oh, there's a follow-up from Shelley.
Yeah. So Shelley, yeah, to get into that a little bit, my team used to be, when my very first marketing team, I had a team that was doing engagement programs, which was this side of the house, and then also more of our customer marketing traditional things like references and G2 reviews and things like that. That became split when we headed into the customer success team and did some of those deeper listening posts. And then now coming back into marketing, that does live lateral to us on another team currently. All right, so impact at a glance. So this kind of takes back to those pillars that we did before and how we kind of show these results. So what we had mentioned before about that VOC report, so we pull insights from that as well to be able to say, in product feature request, how many of those feature requests came from these accounts within our customer advisory boards, and were we able to make an impact or a change or a difference in that? So that's one thing that we're measuring is their feedback being activated in this really core way. And then in terms of that advocacy and engagement goal, so Elena, as Elena mentioned, even though we have a different person in customer marketing who's putting people into alignment and roles, Elena really is a high touch handheld experience with these customers. So if she sees an expertise that they have and can align them back to the marketing team or an operational or an experience, we're going to do that. And we really look at which customers have we activated already, which ones are under activated, and what can we do to be strategic about continuing to amplify that activation of them. Monthly active users, I mentioned this in terms of MAU and being able to look at, is the growth of these accounts accelerating faster than those who are not part of council? And then our annual recurring revenue. So again, if you're really savvy or you have a team that can build you a beautiful dashboard, that would be, that's something that is still on our wish list and we're working with our team to do. But just to really be able to track, that's the beautiful thing about having a continued group of 2 years is you can really see that impact and these EBAs grow over the time that they're part of council. I think another thing that I've been able to go to bat for in terms of funding is saying, do you want to go and have individual meetings and briefings with each of these customers, or do you want to get them in a room together, which is cutting down on your travel as executives and then getting the cross conversations going, which are impactful for both you and the customers to hear how they're influencing each other towards the usage of our product. So I think when we say the account value that's in the room, it's a pretty impressive number. Can't disclose that on this call, but it's a really nice thing to have in your back pocket. And then obviously looking at, are those customers who are on council, again, renewing faster and with more and utilizing more product. And then obviously our CSAT score. So this is something as a program team that we're extremely proud of. We've got, for the entirety of this program, we're at 3 out of 4. We've had 100% perfect CSAT on this program. We do keep the customers in the room and put the survey on the screen and ask them to take 10 minutes and emphasize the importance of filling out the survey while they are there so that we get feedback in real time about how this program went for them and if the content is resonating and what else they need from us to feel successful and continue to be part of this program.
This is another fabulous slide.
All the different metrics. And, this, as Michaela mentioned too, this can evolve on depending on who your stakeholders are.
I will say also, it's one thing to just have a CSAT. It's another thing, obviously, to have your feedback quotes right there to say, why did we get this feedback, right? And so I keep my team on site, God bless them, an entire 24 hours after the program so that we get our executive summary out the door while we're on site. So I think it's just immediately showing our executives, here's who is in the room, here is the impact, here is the quotes and conversations that we had. And then that's followed by a few weeks later, the executive summary really goes into that deeper content that Elena develops.
Oh, we have one more question. Just to get a gauge on what stood out, what information was new, what was helpful.
Yeah, feel free to drop that in the chat. We'd love to know. And then member nomination process, you said the commitments for 2 years. Do all the members starting in the same cohort? They do. Okay, so we do try to really hold that council group for 2 years. If someone leaves the company, if someone is pregnant, if they're under very few specific items, we let a new delegate come in mid-cycle from another company under those types of circumstances. Otherwise, we found that it's just a very important, from a cohort perspective, the trust that's built in that group over those 2 years. I will say that after that 2-year term, I would say it's an 80% same group, 70 to 80 with a 20 to 30% turnover. And that's where we're really evaluating these accounts, right? Like, has it become stagnant? Is the person a problem? Are they showing up to meetings? Or are there other accounts that are really important at this point in time that we need to bring into consideration? And they have to hit in 4 major areas, right? And so we're actually starting a Miro board. Elena, I haven't even told you this. Jen is setting it up for us right now, our operations lead, and it has a 4-point category, right? So is this an account that's important enough from a sales perspective that they should be in council? Is the member themselves culturally a good fit for council? Are they going to be, why are they a good fit? Are they a thought leader? Are they someone that's going to show up positively? Are they going to contribute to their peers in the industry and to Autodesk? Thirdly, we're looking at culture and diversity and making sure that that's there. I think I grouped 2 of them together, that industry expertise and leadership is a very core part of that. If you get those things right, I think the continuity of the group and people wanting to actually attend goes up 10-fold, 20-fold.
Awesome. We're getting close to the end of the session. You can still drop in your questions here and what is your most valuable takeaway. But as we're nearing and oh, go ahead, Elena.
I was just saying, questions, any feedback, we open to it all.
Yeah, and as we're nearing to start wrapping things up, I would ask each of you. I like to ask at the end. Oh, question from Shelley.
Yes, they can.
So can members renew after 2 years? For people who are watching the replay.
Yeah, there's some folks that continue to stay engaged with the council. I think Michaela alluded to this earlier during the nomination process question. But if the members engaged, we continue them on the customer advisory board as a valuable member of the team, and then we refresh those that might have left the company, got promoted, switched roles, maybe aren't engaging as much, and then we pull in new candidates. So we're very intentional about the group that we curate to ensure that that's another value to our CAB members, is that network that they're building.
Shelley, you asked a really important question there of challenges of too many employees wanting to attend. Yes, that is always a problem. I would say it was particularly a problem for us this year because of the legacy of the program being within customer success. So that leader had a larger say in terms of who they wanted in the room and who they felt was valuable and important. And then our entire kind of department moving into the larger Autodesk ecosystem. So all of a sudden we had executives that we didn't even know existed at the company wanting to attend, or one very top executive mentioning to another top executive last minute, and that executive going, well, I need to be in the room. And so one thing that we are doing with our construction, our internal board, so this is our head of product, our head of strategy, our head of customer success, and our head of sales and our head of marketing, we're getting together with them in a month and saying, how are we going to hold the line? And who are you defining as the important people to be in this room? Because we need to ensure that this is valuable to the customers. Another way that I've defended this is I have broken down the cost impact. And I've gone back and said, if you want these people in attendance, you need to understand that it's costing me about $2,000 a day, or like over this course for their food and beverage to be here. How are you justifying this? Are you giving me the funds? And how is this impacting the customer? So I think you have to be able to have trusted partnership with your leadership so that you can have some really candid conversations. It's never perfect.
Thank you, everyone. Lots of comments here that this was so incredibly helpful. So thank you so much. And I wanted to, we do have a few minutes, but at the end, I like to ask Michaela and Elena, what would be your advice, maybe top 1 to 3 items for people who are either launching a CAB or a majority have a CAB, so they need to evolve or expand the CAB?
Yeah.
I can kick us off. For me, it's really building strong rapport and relationships with your cross-functional stakeholders and really showcasing the value of their engagement with the program. It just makes the collaboration aspect when you do go in to build that agenda and planning the event, and they're all willing to jump in and help, has been a huge asset for me. So that took me many years to kind of continue to build that rapport and showcase the value that they get out of the program.
I would say making sure that you are, if you're at a large company and you're wanting some of those top executives in the room, like make their their key players on their team, their chiefs of staff, their executive assistants, your best friends, and really making sure that you're showing the value of the executive to be in the room, but making sure you're telling their team members that are supporting them, this is why I need them present in this, right? Like it took us an entire year to get the head of research of our entire company at our cab, and it was an incredible experience. But Elena started that conversation a year, and when we came to the table to invite these important people, you are marketing to them as much as you are your customers. So have your deck tight, know what you're inviting them to, knowing why it's valuable to give their time, and what they're going to get out of it. And just really, I would say, the tighter ship you can run, both from an internal standpoint and from a customer standpoint, the better trust and consistency you're going to build. So that's where I would put my time, is just getting your comms at every level.
Thank you. Those are both really key items. So we do have a minute, so I'll drop in the one final question. What kind of networking events do you do at the CAB meetings?
I would like to do that, Michaela.
Sure. So I mean, I would say our program has grown into a beast, and so we do open with a welcome reception. I think that's a really nice way as people are flying in from all over. We try to keep that at the hotel so that it is something that is not a crazy experience for them to get on a bus and go somewhere else. Day one of content, then another networking reception, that evening dinner. We've now gotten to the point where we actually allow them to have their significant other for one of the 3 evenings. Because what we were finding is on the last dinner, we were losing people because a lot of times they brought their significant other and they wanted to get out and escape to dinner with them. And so we do two events that are just customers and our teams, and then one event that actually involves the significant others. I would say this has actually been a really sweet and beautiful part of our program. I think Elena and I have traveled more places with our customers and their significant others, and the relationships that those have built. At our last meeting, I saw 3 of our top customers pull out their computers as soon as they knew the save the date so that they could arrange their own hangout and meeting and with their significant others and their council members. So we've really created just a core community with these customers and how they connect with each other. And then a budget ballpark. I know that's always a question. Tatiana, I forget how I was going to break this down, but
You're going to talk about the costs that you covered, and which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So I can't disclose our full budget, but I would say that, it really depends on the caliber of the program. There's a lot of ways to get creative. If you have a nice office building and you want to host it there, that's an option. We've chosen to bring this offsite to a higher end hotel and to pay for those nights. We have to always balance that against, not getting into gifting and making sure that it's a research-based event. So that is why we do not pay for travel. And then we also try to look at where can sales come in and support one of the dinners, right? So, I mean, you can kind of do the calculations if you're looking at a nice restaurant and a few different nights of these customers. So I think that when you think about your budget, really think about what are you trying to achieve with your networking events? How many different budgets can you tap into through making sure that you're showing value to your product, your strategy, your sales, your CS, and your marketing team? And then being smart, right? Like how can you show the value of your executive traveling to one program versus them having to have one-off meetings with all these customers and the T&E that they're going to incur by doing that? So a lot in one breath, but
thank you. That's key what you just said, Michaela. So we're at the top of the hour. So helpful, very valuable. You've been reading the comments, Elena and Michaela. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here.
Appreciate you having us.
Thank you, Tatiana, for organizing. This was awesome.